Behind the left shoulder of the artist holding his brush, a skeleton plays the fiddle with a grotesque grin. This is a harsh and unyielding warning from nature that all things must wither and perish. The violin played by Death retains but a single string, which is the lowest and heaviest G string, vibrating on the brink of snapping. It is the melody of mortality that repeats the single and darkest note of existence. The piercing and resolute gaze in the self-portrait painted the following year is a declaration of existential struggle. It shows a defiance to face the ruin looming behind him and absorb it entirely onto the canvas. Stripping away the facade of a false paradise fabricated under the pretext of purification, a cruel dialogue with the existential abyss of death finally begins. A mind confronting death shuts out the noise of the external world, constructing a monolithic fortress of solitude. The old hermit plays his violin with a bowed head in a deep stillness, and the silence pervading the moonlit landscape serves as a prelude to entering the chasm. This solitude mutates into a visual mourning upon reaching the villa by the sea. A silhouette of a solitary woman in black stands on a cliff whipped by surging waves. Dark moss creeps through hairline fractures along the villa walls as signs of an irreversible loss, collapsing from within despite its rigid exterior. This villa is no mere landscape, but a compulsive sanctuary of the human psyche, fleeing the harsh stimuli of reality to submerge into the deep and quiet waters of the unconscious. We arrive at the Isle of the Dead, a space where all echoes of existence fall into extinction. What is this eerie tranquility felt before these bleak and towering cliffs, which is a calm that overrides terror? The absolute stillness erases the ripples and even the faint sound of waves. Becklin, who spent his life tracking the vestiges of death like an archaeologist, lost 6 of his children to the grave. Driven by this profound grief, he built a sanctuary to freeze it eternally. So the island he engineered with cold marble tombs and sheer precipices is not merely a place where life ends. It is an absolute stasis, freezing even the natural law by which all things decay and dissolve into disorder. The darkness of the cypress trees, piercing vertically through the heart of the island, absorbs the light itself. This depth of shadow is the lowest stratum of the soul, breaking through the rigid crust of reason so that the absurd agonies of reality can no longer intrude. It serves as the safest bunker the unconscious can forge. That silhouetted figure, clad in white, drifting on the ferry, is not descending into doom. It is the self-portrait of human existence, finally crossing the waves of futility to reach the salvation of absolute silence. Emerging from the silence of death, what lies ahead is the sorrowful landscape of human existence, which is alive, yet utterly marooned. The quiet contrast between the scarlet cloth beneath her and the dark silhouette reveals a deep inner isolation, reaching far beyond a simple visual impact. Calypso's gaze blazes forward, yet a lonely back stands turned away, facing the sea completely with heavy shoulders. Not a single element within the canvas connects their lines of sight. And the ocean Ulysses stares into is dead, where the light has vanished, only a lead-grey void remains. This is a cruel device by the master, implying that the home he longs for, the very root of his existence, has already been lost. Through this rigorously fractured composition, Becklin exposes the profoundest psychological penalty confronting humanity: the total rupture of communication, where two beings occupy the same space but fail to reach each other's inner worlds. Indeed, even within what appears to be the radiant paradise of the world, an individual isolated in complete severance is destined to fragment and crumble alone. Within these mismatched gazes, trapped as eternal strangers in a single space, the naked reality of the existential loneliness we so desperately try to evade is ruthlessly unveiled. The human spirit, having finally broken through the terminal of the abyss, arrives at the magnificent finale engineered by Becklin, which is the Island of Life. This is a space where the dread of loss, where time flows and all things wither, has completely vanished. It stands as the perfect manifestation of Arcadia, the eternal utopia that humanity has so desperately yearned for. While the Isle of the Dead submerged into a cold stillness, this Island of Life features golden trees that surge vertically, cycling in a dynamic circle. The entrance to the stone sepulchre witnessed in the Island of Death does not exist here. If the Island of Death was a sanctuary of silence to evade pain, this Island of Life is a radiant celebration of vitality, achieved by confronting and overcoming that very suffering. Like a sacred flame that never dims, even as the physical body withers, this dazzling canvas is the ultimate testament Becklin forged while fighting the whispers of death. Mortal and fleeting as we are, this radiant hymn of life finally cradles us in the infinity of art. Here upon the luminous earth at the Island of Life, all earthly sorrows and anxieties stand eternally still. Overcoming the immediate futility to dream of an eternal existence, a grand existential salvation achieves its ultimate consummation. Why do we still wander this uncanny realm engineered by Arnold Becklin, even a century later? From the very moment the human existence awakens to the certainty of mortality, the mind instinctively traces a solemn trajectory, defending against futility while yearning for salvation. In the theatre of psychoanalytic aesthetics, Becklin's art stands as a monumental milestone, proving how this universal existential struggle and its defense mechanisms can be sublimated into visual iconography. The cruel isolation and leaden severances we witness throughout this journey were never merely a single master's private tragedy. They were the inevitable, unconscious chasms that every conscious mind must confront upon the terrain of life, bound by the sentence of finiteness. The ultimate value of art does not lie in forging a counterfeit paradise devoid of pain to deceive the beholder. For only the soul that has marched straight through the most sombre and unyielding fortresses of silence earns the right to declare the complete integration of a fractured self and true spiritual healing. The final philosophical thesis he hurls across time is luminous. Suffering and liberation, stillness and cycle are not opposing fractures, but an organic iconography that completes the sublime tapestry of human existence. The artist's defiance, refusing to kneel before the dread of erasure, striking his will directly onto the unyielding sanctuary of the canvas, has now become a collective intellectual asset for us all. To look directly into the dark, the suffering, and the core of being, thereby transcending the limits of life to attain the absolute liberation of the inner self. That is the most grand, chilling spiritual legacy he etches into our very souls from the far edge of this monumental quest.